U.S. government has officially admitted it cannot explain what its own Navy pilots recorded on radar and infrared camera. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a congressional hearing on record with decorated aviators testifying under oath. Now here's the part nobody's talking about. While those hearings were happening, a patent was sitting in the public USPTO database, filed by an aerospace engineer working for the U.S. Navy, describing almost exactly how those objects would work. The patent is called Craft Using an Inertial Mass Reduction Device. You can search it right now. It's not classified, it's not hidden, it's just sitting there, written in engineering language, waiting for someone to read it. That's what this video is about. We're going to walk through three things: the patents themselves, the classified test ranges where something would have to be flown, and the physics that says this isn't pure fiction. By the end, you won't need to take anyone's word for any of it, because every piece of this paper trail is public and searchable. The gap between what the public knows and what's already been built and tested may be wider than you think. Most aerospace patents are boring. They describe a new wing profile, a more efficient turbine blade geometry, a lighter landing gear strut. They're incremental improvements on systems that have existed for decades, and they read like what they are: engineering refinements. Craft Using an Inertial Mass Reduction Device doesn't read like that. The patent, filed by Dr. Salvatore Pais while employed as an aerospace engineer with the Naval Air Station Patuxent River, describes a craft that reduces its own inertial mass and gravitational mass using high-frequency electromagnetic fields. Not thrust, not lift, not any force acting on the craft from the outside. The claim is that the craft itself interacts differently with space-time by generating the right kind of electromagnetic envelope around its hull. To understand why that's extraordinary, think about what inertia actually is. Inertia is resistance to change in motion. It's why you feel pressed into your seat when a fighter jet accelerates, and why a hard turn at high speed can kill a pilot. The body can't handle the G-forces the maneuver generates. Every aircraft ever built has had to work around inertia. You can't make it go away, so you build airframes that handle stress, and you train pilots to survive what the physics demands. Inertial mass reduction doesn't work around that problem. It removes it. A craft with near zero inertia could change direction without decelerating first. It could accelerate from a dead stop to hypersonic speed without the crushing G-load that would turn a human crew into paste. It wouldn't need aerodynamic control surfaces because it wouldn't be fighting air resistance the way a conventional aircraft does. And because it's not compressing air ahead of it through brute thrust, it wouldn't generate a sonic boom. Watch the Pentagon released footage of the Tic Tac encounter from 2004 again with that in mind. The object, tracked by the USS Nimitz's radar systems and visually confirmed by multiple pilots, made a reported instantaneous directional change with no deceleration signature, no turn radius, no energy bleed. Commander David Fravor, the pilot who intercepted it, described it accelerating away faster than anything he'd ever seen, then disappearing entirely. That's not a description of thrust-based propulsion. That's a description of something that simply isn't playing by the same inertial rules. Pais also filed a companion patent called the High-Frequency Gravitational Wave Generator, describing hardware capable of manipulating gravitational waves directly. Patent examiners don't rubber stamp filings like this. When the Navy's patent office initially pushed back, the Navy responded in writing, arguing the technology was operable and that the US needed the patent approved to maintain technological advantage over China. That response is part of the public record. Companies file speculative patents. That happens constantly in aerospace, but they don't typically write letters to their own patent office defending the operability of a gravitational wave generator on national security grounds unless something beyond speculation is already on the table. These documents aren't fringe material. They're filed in a federal database, reviewed by government examiners, and defended by a branch of the US military. Whatever they describe, someone decided it was worth protecting. The patents describe what the propulsion system would do. The question is where you'd actually build and fly it. There's a stretch of southern Nevada that the US government doesn't officially discuss in any operational detail. Groom Lake, the Tonopah Test Range, the Nevada Test and Training Range. Together, they form a corridor of restricted airspace so large and so consistently enforced that civilian aircraft are rerouted around it by default. The infrastructure out there isn't just runways, it's hangars built into mountainsides, radar installations with no public designation, and a workforce that commutes on unmarked aircraft out of a private terminal at Las Vegas McCarran. This is the same corridor where the U-2 first flew in 1955, the SR-71 in 1964, and the F-117 in 1977. None of those programs were publicly acknowledged for more than a decade after first flight. The U-2 alone generated a documented spike in UFO reports across Nevada in the late 1950s, because a silver-skinned aircraft flying at 70,000 feet above the ceiling of every known commercial and military aircraft at the time looked like nothing anyone had a reference for. The CIA later confirmed this in a declassified history of the U-2 program. The pattern is consistent. Skunk Works flies something nobody can explain. The sighting reports pile up, and the official explanation comes a decade or two later when the program is either compromised or too old to protect. That timeline argument matters when you look at where we are now. If a craft using mass reduction propulsion entered testing in the mid-2000s, and the classified aerospace pipeline historically runs 10 to 20 years ahead of public acknowledgement, the program wouldn't be anywhere near a public reveal yet. Bob Lazar claimed in the late 1980s that he worked at a facility called S4 near Papoose Lake, south of Groom Lake, on a craft that used what he described as gravity wave propulsion. His credentials have never been fully verified, and his account has real credibility problems. But the specific propulsion mechanism he described, a high-frequency field interacting with space-time to move a craft without conventional thrust, maps closely to what the PI's patents formally describe on paper, filed roughly 30 years after Lazar first went public. That's either a strange coincidence or the public description eventually caught up to what someone already knew. The pilot testimony adds a geographic thread that's harder to dismiss. The 2004 U.S. Nimitz encounter happened off the coast of Southern California. The objects tracked by the ship's radar were descending from 80,000 feet to near sea level in seconds, then accelerating away at speeds the ship's systems couldn't track conventionally. Several pilots reported the objects seemed to anticipate their intercept approach before they'd close the distance. After the encounter, radar operators tracked one of the objects heading inland, toward the Nevada test corridor. The 2015 USS Theodore Roosevelt encounters, documented in the leaked FLIR and gimbal videos, showed objects with no visible exhaust plume, no control surfaces, and the ability to hold position against 120-knot winds before accelerating without any visible thrust signature, operating in both air and water with no transition signature between the two. No thrust-based aircraft in the public inventory does any of that. The classified aerospace pipeline has a documented, verified history of running well ahead of what anyone outside those programs knows exists. There's no evidence that gap has closed, and some evidence it's wider than it's ever been. Most people assume that if inertial mass reduction were real, mainstream physics would know about it. The assumption is that nothing this significant could exist in the scientific literature without getting flagged, studied, and either confirmed or killed. The thing is, the theoretical foundation is already in the literature. It's just spread across papers that don't get read outside of graduate physics programs. Start with general relativity. Einstein's equations don't forbid space-time curvature around an object. They describe it. In 1994, a physicist named Miguel Alcubierre published a metric showing that a region of space-time could, in principle, be compressed in front of a craft and expanded behind it, moving the craft through space without the craft itself accelerating in the conventional sense. The object inside the bubble wouldn't experience inertia in the normal way, because locally it wouldn't be moving at all. The space around it would be doing the work. The original problem with the Alcubierre metric was energy. Early calculations put the requirement at something equivalent to the mass energy of Jupiter, which made the whole thing a thought experiment with no engineering pathway. But subsequent revisions brought that number down considerably, and more recent theoretical work has continued to reduce the estimated requirements. The goalposts have been moving in the right direction for 30 years, which isn't how failed physics usually behaves. Now layer in what Pius was describing at the engineering level. The mechanism in his patents isn't a warp bubble in the science fiction sense. It's a rapidly rotating, high-frequency electromagnetic field generated around the hull of the craft, designed to interact with what physicists call the quantum vacuum. Every point in space, even a perfect vacuum, contains fluctuating energy at the quantum level. That's not a theoretical abstraction. It's the explanation for the Casimir effect, which you can demonstrate in any well-equipped lab. Two uncharged metal plates placed close together in a vacuum will move toward each other because quantum fluctuations push them. Nobody disputes this. It's reproducible and measurable, and it tells you that empty space isn't actually empty. What Pius claimed is that a sufficiently intense, rotating electromagnetic field could interact with that quantum vacuum energy in a way that effectively reduces the inertial and gravitational mass of the object generating the field. The craft wouldn't be pushing against space, it would be changing how space responds to it. The Navy's decision to defend that patent in writing is what separates this from 100 other speculative filings. When the patent examiner initially rejected the high-energy electromagnetic field generator application on the grounds that it violated known physics, the Navy's chief technology officer wrote back stating that the inventor had already demonstrated a working prototype. That letter is part of the public record. Whether the prototype did what the patent claims at full scale is a different question, but a branch of the US military put its name on the assertion that the underlying effect was real and reproducible. The honest position on the physics is this: the gap between the Casimir effect and a flying craft that rewrites inertia is genuinely enormous. The engineering problems between a lab demonstration and an operational propulsion system are not trivial, but the theoretical chain from proven quantum vacuum effects to the mechanism Pius described is not broken. It's incomplete, with some steps that current public physics can't fill in. And black programs with decades of runway and classification levels that prevent peer review are precisely where incomplete physics goes to become something else entirely. Pull the three threads together and one picture forms that's harder to wave away than any single piece of it. The patents are real, filed by a credentialed Navy engineer, defended in writing by the Navy's own technology office on national security grounds. The test infrastructure in Nevada is real, with a documented history of running classified aerospace programs a decade or more ahead of anything the public was told existed. The physics has a legitimate, if incomplete, theoretical foundation that connects to effects already demonstrated in controlled lab settings. None of those three things proves an operational craft, but they also don't exist in isolation. They point in the same direction. The UAP disclosure process has been managed so carefully and so slowly that the management itself tells you something. When the government genuinely doesn't know what it's looking at, it tends to say so loudly and immediately because that triggers threat assessments and budget requests. What it doesn't do is sit on sensor footage for years, release it through back channels, and then spend another several years acknowledging the footage is authentic while refusing to discuss what the objects actually are. That's not the behavior of an institution that's confused. That's the behavior of one that knows the answer and is deciding how much of it to give up. The counter-argument worth taking seriously is the prior art argument. China's aerospace and defense research institutions have been publishing work on high-frequency gravitational wave applications in electromagnetic propulsion since the early 2000s. Some of the Pius filings may have been as much about staking intellectual territory against Chinese patent activity as they were about documenting hardware that already flew. Patent strategy and operational reality aren't the same thing, and it's worth holding both possibilities at once. What's still not confirmed? No public source has produced a verified photograph of a prototype. No whistleblower account has been corroborated by physical evidence that's cleared independent scrutiny. The physics between a Navy letter defending a patent and an aircraft that genuinely manipulates inertia still contains gaps that published science hasn't closed. Those are real limits on this argument, and pretending otherwise would make the whole case weaker, not stronger. What the convergence of these specific documents, this specific geography, and this specific pilot testimony adds up to is a pattern too precise for coincidence and too incomplete for certainty. That's an uncomfortable place to land, but it's the honest one. The paper trail is real. The test ranges are real. The physics has a foundation, even if the ceiling is still classified. What's missing is the part that never gets declassified until it's already obsolete or already compromised. The patent numbers are in the description. Search them yourself, read the Navy's own defense of them, and decide what you think they were actually protecting. China just shook the skies. Since the unveiling of the White Emperor, comparisons to the US's NGAD and F-22 have sparked intense debate. Analysts are scrutinizing every detail, from speed and stealth to firepower, as the battle lines in the race for air dominance are clearly drawn. How does the White Emperor truly measure up against these American fighters? And could it tip the balance of power in the skies for years to come? Join us as we compare the capabilities of two sixth-generation air fighters that are bound to change the future of aerial warfare. As tensions between Washington and Beijing continue to escalate, the global race to field sixth-generation fighter aircraft has reached a critical stage, with both nations pouring immense resources into developing platforms designed to dominate the skies and achieve strategic air superiority. The U.S. Air Force's Next Generation Air Dominance Program, or NGAD, is projected to set a new standard when it enters service over the next decade, boasting a combination of manned and unmanned systems, cutting-edge stealth, advanced adaptive engines, and integrated sensor networks. On the other hand, the People's Liberation Army Air Force is constructing its own next-generation fighter, dubbed the White Emperor, which was unveiled recently at the Zhuhai Air Show. According to state-run reports, this ambitious platform is intended to operate not only in the atmosphere, but potentially in near space, showing China's push for strategic flexibility and technological prestige. While some of these claims may appear exaggerated, the rapid pace of Beijing's military modernization, combined with its expanding aerospace capabilities, makes the program a serious point of concern for U.S. military planners. Publicly available images and video footage reveal a fighter with large internal missile bays, capable of carrying increased ordnance without compromising stealth, and a delta-shaped aerodynamic design that emphasizes both speed and maneuverability. Analysts, including the Bulgarian military, have noted the platform's carefully engineered pointed nose, smooth body contours, and multi-layered cockpit canopy, all optimized to reduce radar and infrared signatures, signaling the PLAAF's focus on next-generation stealth. The aircraft's design is said to emphasize a low observable profile while maximizing high-speed maneuverability, allowing it to survive and dominate in contested airspace against advanced fifth-generation and future sixth-generation adversaries. Central to its agility are advanced thrust vectoring engines and a restructured fuselage, which theoretically grant the fighter super maneuverability similar to what the F-22 Raptor can achieve. Such extreme directional responsiveness would be essential in high-stakes air-to-air engagements, enabling pilots to evade missiles, counter hostile fighters, and execute precision strikes under conditions where split-second reaction times could determine the outcome of a battle. The fighter is also reportedly designed with an expanded internal weapons bay, capable of carrying a variety of munitions for multiple mission profiles. This flexibility would allow a single aircraft to switch seamlessly between air-to-air combat, air-to-ground strikes, and even near-space operations, giving the People's Liberation Army Air Force a highly adaptable and survivable tool for both traditional and emerging battle domains. Further distinguishing the White Emperor from its predecessors is the inclusion of directed energy weapons, most notably lasers. These systems, integrated into the airframe, are likely intended to provide simultaneous multi-target engagement, allowing the aircraft to neutralize multiple threats in rapid succession. This capability exemplifies next-generation combat thinking, where advanced sensors, stealth, and precision energy weapons work in concert to provide a decisive advantage. According to reports, including analysis from China Arms, test flights of the White Emperor suggest that the platform is not merely theoretical. It has demonstrated the potential to operate across multiple domains. The aircraft is envisioned to engage in air-to-air duels, precision strikes against ground targets, and missions in near-space environments, where conventional fighters cannot operate effectively. The aerodynamic design also plays a critical role in the fighter's performance. Sleek aerodynamic lines reduce drag while improving stealth, and the multi-layered, reflective minimizing cockpit canopy likely shields pilots from detection. Delta-shaped wings and advanced control surfaces further enhance speed, stability, and responsiveness at supersonic velocities, making the aircraft difficult to track, target, or intercept. Internally, avionics, sensors, and weapon systems are integrated into a unified network, allowing real-time data fusion and rapid decision-making during complex missions. This convergence of stealth, propulsion, and energy weapons is intended to produce a fighter capable of operating independently or in concert with unmanned systems, providing both redundancy and force multiplication. Artificial intelligence plays a central role in the White Emperor, elevating it beyond the capabilities of even the most advanced fifth-generation fighters. This next-generation system is said to process vast streams of real-time data, assess incoming threats, and execute tactical maneuvers without requiring constant pilot input. Such an approach opens the door for both semi-autonomous and fully autonomous missions, where the human role could shift from direct control to mission supervision. This is not just theory. A similar capability has already been demonstrated by the United States Air Force with the experimental X-62 Vista, which showcased how artificial intelligence could assume control of a combat jet in live environments. By following this model, the White Emperor may mark the point where autonomy moves from experimental programs into operational fighter platforms. For the pilot, the benefit is transformative. Instead of being overwhelmed with multiple information streams in the chaos of aerial combat, the onboard systems powered by artificial intelligence deliver immediate, actionable intelligence. Threats can be detected, analyzed, and prioritized in fractions of a second, allowing the pilot to respond faster than human reflexes alone would ever permit. In this sense, the human operator becomes the mission director, relying on the jet's artificial intelligence to execute rapid maneuvers, select optimal weapons, and even coordinate with allied aircraft or unmanned systems flying alongside. Such AI-driven situational awareness effectively allows the White Emperor to fight as a central node in a vast digital battle network. The Aviation Industry Corporation of China has clearly positioned this technology not as an optional feature, but as a core design philosophy. The Indian Defense Research Wing underscored this shift, noting that AVIC's design prioritizes artificial intelligence not just for tactical maneuvering, but as an integral component of multi-unit, networked combat. In practice, this means the White Emperor could seamlessly integrate with other fighters, drones, or command and control systems, exchanging data in real time and executing coordinated strikes across multiple domains. It is a concept that mirrors and perhaps seeks to outpace the United States Air Force's vision for its own next-generation air dominance program, where manned and unmanned systems are designed to operate as a single cohesive force. By integrating this level of autonomy, China is signaling its intent to compete not only in the development of stealth, propulsion, and weapons technologies, but also in the field of digital warfare. The White Emperor could potentially reduce the need for continuous human oversight in high-risk missions, sending unmanned or semi-autonomous units deep into contested airspace where survival odds for a pilot would be minimal. This possibility represents both a technological leap and a strategic shift, moving warfare into an era where decisions are increasingly made by machine intelligence guided by human objectives. The White Emperor is built to be far more than a single-purpose aircraft. Its designers envisioned a machine capable of adapting to nearly any role on the battlefield. This fighter is intended for multi-role missions, able to take on air-to-air engagements, air-to-ground strikes, and even operations in what China claims are near-space environments. Embracing this range, it attempts to cover multiple mission types with one highly adaptable platform. Such flexibility reflects China's broader ambition to field aircraft that are not only powerful but also versatile enough to meet unpredictable combat demands. A major reason for this adaptability lies in the White Emperor's modular systems. Unlike older aircraft that require significant modifications for new missions, the White Emperor can be configured quickly for different combat scenarios. This means the jet can transition from conducting deep strike missions to performing air superiority patrols with minimal delay. In practical terms, this versatility allows China's Air Force to deploy fewer aircraft while still maintaining coverage across a wide variety of missions. By reducing logistical strain and increasing readiness, the White Emperor strengthens China's ability to conduct long, sustained campaigns without exhausting its resources. Equally important is the emphasis on maintenance. A VIC designed for White Emperor with low maintenance requirements in mind. Traditional fourth-generation jets often suffer from long downtimes after missions, but the White Emperor promises high availability with minimal turnaround time. For prolonged operations, where every minute matters, this capability ensures the aircraft can stay in the fight longer and return to the skies faster. It is not just about performance during combat, but also about endurance over the course of days, weeks, or even months of deployment. Where the White Emperor truly shows its futuristic intent is in its networked warfare capabilities. The jet is not meant to fight alone. Instead, it is designed to integrate seamlessly into China's future combat networks, linking up with other aircraft, ground units, and even naval forces. Such interconnectivity transforms the jet from a single war machine into a node in a vast, coordinated system. This concept mirrors the approach of Western programs, such as the United States Air Force's collaborative combat aircraft initiatives, where drones and manned jets work in harmony. By being able to communicate in real time, the aircraft expands tactical options on the battlefield. Pilots can receive live data from drones, pass targeting information to ships, or coordinate with ground-based missile systems. The effect is a wider, more unified battlefield picture, enabling swifter decision-making and more precise strikes. The South China Morning Post emphasized this point by noting, "The jet's networked capability allows coordinated actions with diverse units, reinforcing China's bid for air superiority." Artificial intelligence plays a central role in this networked vision. The White Emperor's onboard systems are designed to process massive amounts of data in real time, filtering and prioritizing information for the pilot, or even handling coordination autonomously. When combined with drones and ground units, this creates a combat environment where China's forces can act faster than their opponents, tightening the decision loop in their favor. Taken together, the White Emperor's operational flexibility and networked capabilities highlight China's determination to dominate future battlefields. By merging adaptability, endurance, and interconnectivity, the aircraft is presented as a cornerstone of a larger vision, one where Chinese forces can seamlessly coordinate across air, land, and sea, maintaining the upper hand in complex, high-intensity conflicts. Unlike traditional fighters, the White Emperor is often described as more than an aircraft, standing somewhere between a combat jet and an aerospace vehicle. Its rumored ability to operate at near-space altitudes marks a fundamental shift in how air dominance might be defined in the future. Reports have emphasized that China's defense industry wants to achieve a qualitative leap that challenges existing superiority dynamics. According to the National Interest, the White Emperor series could reshape contested airspace by bolstering China's ability to project power far beyond its borders. If realized, such an aircraft would not merely match foreign developments, but could redefine them, forcing adversaries to prepare for combat environments extending into the stratosphere. Although details remain scarce, particularly in English-language sources, speculation paints a picture of extraordinary performance. The White Emperor is believed to be capable of reaching top speeds near Mach 5, translating to almost 6,000 kilometers per hour, and covering operational ranges beyond 4,500 miles. Its ceiling is claimed to extend past 100,000 feet, placing it within near-space territory where traditional air defenses lose much of their effectiveness. These numbers alone, if proven accurate, would mark the White Emperor as a once-in-a-generation leap in aerial engineering, setting it apart not only from fifth-generation fighters like the F-35 or the J-20, but also from projects aimed at the sixth generation. The role of artificial intelligence is perhaps the most revolutionary aspect. Instead of simply assisting the pilot with navigation or weapons targeting, the White Emperor is expected to function with full autonomy when required. Real-time decision-making, data assessment, and threat prioritization could all be handled by onboard algorithms, giving the jet an option to operate as an unmanned system. Such autonomy would not only reduce risk to human pilots, but also allow the aircraft to push beyond human physiological limits, especially in high-speed, high-altitude engagements. In parallel, its weapon loadout, which is rumored to include hypersonic missiles and directed energy lasers, would give it the capability to strike with both overwhelming force and precision. Another significant factor is the promise of minimal maintenance requirements. If China's designers succeed in reducing logistical burdens, the White Emperor would not only be more powerful than many of its rivals, but also more available, spending less time grounded and more time deployed on missions. This would give the PLAAF a considerable operational advantage in a drawn-out conflict, where rapid redeployment and sustained pressure are key. Much like the NGAD fighter, the White Emperor is expected to operate alongside unmanned systems, with loyal wingman drones serving as expendable extensions of the manned aircraft's operational reach. In the NGAD framework, collective combat aircraft, or CCA drones, accompany the main fighter, reducing the need for larger quantities of manned aircraft and lowering program costs while providing unprecedented battlefield flexibility. The projected timeline for China's sixth-generation fighter calls for operational deployment by 2035, which means a functional design must emerge before the end of this decade, placing significant pressure on designers and engineers. The United States, however, appears further along in the program, integrating advanced adaptive engines, AESA radars, and networked sensor fusion to create a versatile and stealthy aerial platform capable of dominating contested airspace. On the 21st of March, 2025, President Trump announced that Boeing had been selected to build the United States Air Force's sixth-generation fighter to meet the NGAD requirement, revealing that the aircraft would be known as the F-47. The previous year had seen dramatic shifts in America's two next-generation air dominance programs. Budget pressures forced a reevaluation of priorities, pausing the source selection process for NGAD. The Air Force was instructed to reconsider not only the capabilities it required from the crewed fighter at the heart of the NGAD system, but also whether such an aircraft remained necessary at all. Simultaneously, the United States Navy's F/A-XX effort, often also called NGAD, received renewed attention, clarifying earlier misconceptions that the program had been halted entirely. New strategic challenges quickly emerged. Potential adversaries, particularly China, sought ways to deny the U.S. and its allies the freedom to conduct operations in their preferred manner. China's response took the form of the Anti-Access Area Denial Strategy, or A2/AD, designed to prevent American forces from entering key operational areas and to limit their freedom of action within those zones. By using long-range air defenses, advanced missiles, hypersonic glide vehicles, and layered detection systems, China aims to push enemy aircraft to more distant bases, complicate refueling and battle management, and disrupt operational tempo. It is important to note that A2/AD does not make airspace impenetrable. Instead, it forces adversaries to operate under constraints, slowing or redirecting their actions and preventing deep strikes. In parallel, China has sought to achieve significant mass in its forces, challenging the numerical advantage the United States once enjoyed. Andrew Hunter, the outgoing acquisition executive for the U.S. Air Force, acknowledged the competitive pressures, noting that China could beat the U.S. to the punch. He added that while the U.S. may eventually possess superior capability, the U.S. certainly has no time to lose. Current American fighters, such as the F-35A, have a combat radius of only 590 nautical miles, or 1,093 kilometers, while the F-22A has an even smaller radius when relying on supercruise. Both aircraft would need to refuel within approximately 500 nautical miles, or 926 kilometers, of their targets, a requirement that places tankers in vulnerable positions, effectively leaving them as sitting ducks under modern A2/AD conditions. This evolving environment demonstrates why NGAD, combined with advanced air refueling and networked operations, is critical. Without such innovations, U.S. and allied air forces would struggle to penetrate adversary defenses, sustain prolonged missions, or maintain the operational freedom necessary to secure decisive air superiority in the decades ahead. The strategic and technological imperatives driving NGAD reflect a profound shift in how aerial warfare will be conducted against peer adversaries. Another uncomfortable reality is that the United States Air Force can barely afford a next-generation air dominance fighter with a unit cost of approximately $300 million within the time frame the aircraft will be required. This is unusual for a service that has historically been the best-funded Air Force in the world. Currently, the U.S. Air Force is prioritizing the two legs of the nuclear triad for which it is responsible, the B-21A Raider bomber and the LGM-35A Sentinel, also known as the Ground-Based Strategic Deterrent. Both programs consume a massive portion of the budget, and with the Sentinel program's cost nearly doubling to just under $141 billion, there is little room left for an expensive NGAD manned fighter. This budget constraint, rather than any change in threat perception, drives the push to reduce NGAD costs. Ultimately, a high-capability, long-range NGAD core manned fighter is essential, even if it comes at a high cost. Only about 200 units are expected, and none will likely be exported, limiting economies of scale. Proposals for lighter NGAD variants would augment, rather than replace, the main platform. The Air Force has long considered dual versions, one optimized for long-range, heavy payloads in the Indo-Pacific, and another for shorter-range operations in Europe. The vision includes a clean-sheet design with open mission systems capable of rapid software updates, ensuring the NGAD remains a high-end fighter while allowing smaller, lower-cost aircraft to handle day-to-day missions, preserving the core platform for high-intensity operations. When it comes to speed, military aviation has always chased the dream of building the fastest aircraft in the world. But the race for hypersonic flight isn't led by the United States alone. Russia's fastest fighter jet has been turning heads for years. What makes this aircraft so remarkable? And what hidden capabilities set it apart from the rest? Join us as we explore the capabilities of the Russian fastest fighter jet that shocked both America and China. The MiG-25 was not just another Soviet jet. It was born out of fear, an urgent fear that gripped Soviet generals in the late 1950s. At the time, the United States was showing off a new generation of supersonic bombers that could fly faster and higher than anything the Soviets had in their arsenal. First came the B-58 Hustler, an American bomber capable of flying at twice the speed of sound, or Mach 2. But what really alarmed the Kremlin was the XB-70 Valkyrie, a futuristic aircraft designed to cruise at Mach 3 speeds, 3 times the speed of sound, while flying at altitudes above 70,000 feet. From those heights and at that velocity, the Valkyrie could slip past Soviet air defenses and unleash nuclear weapons before anyone could stop it. The Soviet Air Defense Forces, known as the PVO, quickly realized their existing interceptor jets were useless against such a threat. None of them could fly high enough or fast enough to even catch sight of the Valkyrie, let alone shoot it down. For the Soviet Union, this was not just a military problem, it was a national security nightmare. In desperation, the government handed the challenge to the Mikoyan-Gurevich Design Bureau, the same team responsible for earlier MiG fighters. Their mission was simple to describe, but nearly impossible to achieve. Build a jet that could climb like a rocket, reach extreme altitudes, and fly at blistering speeds to catch and destroy American bombers before they dropped their deadly cargo. By the early 1960s, the project was officially approved. It was given the name YA-155, which would eventually split into two versions. The YA-155P would serve as the dedicated interceptor, while the YA-155R would act as a high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft. Both shared the same extreme design philosophy: speed and altitude above everything else. The MiG-25 was never meant to be a nimble dogfighter like later jets. Agility and long combat endurance did not matter for its mission. What mattered was raw performance. It needed to take off, rocket into the sky, and intercept intruding bombers in a matter of minutes. Think of it less like a graceful fighter and more like a guided missile with a cockpit. This extreme focus on performance shaped every part of the aircraft. It was built largely from nickel-steel alloys instead of lighter aluminum, since lighter metals would melt at the scorching temperatures caused by Mach 3 speeds. Its engines were massive and powerful, designed to push the aircraft at breathtaking velocity, even if they guzzled fuel at alarming rates. The MiG-25's mission profile was brutally simple: race toward the target at incredible speed, fire its missiles in a high-speed pass, and then return to base. There would be no circling battles, no extended patrols, and no flashy aerobatics. It was a specialist, built to counter one of the scariest threats of the Cold War. When Viktor Belenko's MiG-25P was taken apart by Western experts in Japan, the results stunned them. For years, the West had feared it was an advanced titanium superfighter capable of leaving every other jet behind. Instead, what they uncovered was a machine built with raw practicality, focused more on sheer performance than on refined craftsmanship. The most surprising discovery was its construction. Roughly 80% of the airframe was not crafted from lightweight alloys or futuristic titanium, but from arc-welded nickel steel. This choice seemed almost crude to Western eyes, but it was in fact a practical solution to a serious problem. At sustained speeds approaching Mach 2.8 and beyond, the skin of the aircraft would heat up to extraordinary temperatures. While titanium would have been an ideal material to resist such heat, the Soviet Union did not have the ability to produce it in the massive quantities required for such a project. Instead, steel was chosen because it was both available and strong enough to withstand the brutal thermal stress. This decision, however, came with enormous consequences. The aircraft was incredibly heavy compared to its Western counterparts. Its empty weight was around 20,000 kilograms, or approximately 44,000 pounds. To get such a heavy jet into the sky and keep it there, the designers had no choice but to give it enormous wings. These oversized wings created the necessary lift to support the steel frame, even if they made the jet look less sleek than other fighters of its time. Instead of smooth, polished panels like those on American aircraft, the MiG-25 revealed exposed rivet heads, rough welding seams, and visible signs of hand-built work. To experts used to precision assembly lines and elegant finishes, the Soviet aircraft looked rugged and unfinished. Some even described it as crude, a far cry from the advanced flying machines they had imagined. But what seemed unsophisticated on the surface was actually a clever reflection of Soviet design philosophy. The MiG-25 was never built to win beauty contests or impress with refined details. It was created to do one thing: fly at blistering speeds and extreme altitudes in order to intercept and destroy enemy bombers before they reach their targets. Every design decision, from the heavy steel body to the massive wings, was aimed at making this single mission possible. In a way, the MiG-25 was like a sledgehammer. It lacked finesse, but delivered devastating force in exactly the way it was intended. While Western engineers might have frowned at its rough look, they could not ignore the genius behind its practicality. The Soviets had accepted weight, sacrificed elegance, and ignored agility in order to gain strength, speed, and survivability. In the process, they created a jet that was raw, brutal, and unforgettable. Powering the mighty MiG-25 were two gigantic Tumansky R-15 B-300 single-shaft afterburning turbojets. These engines were enormous pieces of engineering, designed less for elegance and more for brute force. They produced astonishing power, with each engine generating close to 110 kilonewtons of thrust when using an afterburner. To put it in simpler terms, that was nearly 25,000 pounds of thrust per engine, enough to lift and push the massive Foxbat into the upper limits of the stratosphere. This raw force allowed the aircraft to sustain speeds of almost Mach 2.83 during normal operations. Such speeds were beyond what most Western aircraft could achieve in the same era, and they cemented the Foxbat's reputation as one of the fastest jets ever built. Yet there was always the legend of its fabled top speed, Mach 3.2. This incredible figure captured imaginations and spread fear among potential adversaries. However, reaching that speed was never intended for regular missions. In fact, it was only allowed under extreme emergency situations. Pushing the MiG-25 that far would cause the engines to run far hotter than their safe limits. The extreme heat would quickly begin to damage the internal components, meaning the engines would essentially burn themselves out if the pilot held that speed for too long. In other words, it was like having a self-destruct button hidden within the power plant, and Soviet engineers strictly forbade such recklessness outside of absolute necessity. As with all feats of extreme performance, there was a steep price to pay. The Foxbat's engines were incredibly thirsty. They consumed fuel at an alarming rate, particularly when flying at low altitudes where the efficiency dropped even further. This was not just a small drawback. It became one of the aircraft's defining weaknesses. Western pilots and engineers even nicknamed the Foxbat a gas guzzler, and the name was not far from the truth. While the jet could climb to incredible heights and outrun nearly anything in the sky, it could not stay airborne for very long without refueling. The limited efficiency of the R-15 engines severely reduced the fighter's combat radius. At best, the Foxbat could manage only a few hundred miles before needing to return or meet up with a tanker. This meant the aircraft was never suited for long-distance patrol missions or extended dogfights. Instead, its role was shaped by this limitation. It was designed to be a short-dash interceptor. The MiG-25's main job was to take off quickly, climb at an astonishing rate, reach extreme altitude and speed, intercept its target, and then return to base before its fuel tanks ran dry. This made it a very specialized machine, superb in its intended role, but limited if pushed beyond it. Despite these drawbacks, the Foxbat's sheer speed and altitude performance gave it a fearsome reputation in the Cold War skies. Its very existence forced rival nations to rethink their strategies and technologies, proving that raw power, even when paired with inefficiency, could still reshape the balance of air superiority. From its very first flights, it stunned the aviation world by setting world records that seemed almost unreal at the time. The aircraft soared higher and faster than anything most nations had ever seen, reaching an astonishing altitude of more than 37,000 meters in a zoom climb, which translated to over 123,000 feet. Such feats carved the MiG-25 into the history books as one of the fastest and highest-flying combat aircraft ever designed. Yet beneath this extraordinary ceiling of performance lay glaring weaknesses that made the aircraft something of a paradox. Its structure, built primarily from heavy stainless steel rather than lighter alloys, meant that agility was sacrificed for raw speed and strength. In combat, this limitation was clear. The MiG-25 was restricted to a modest 4.5 Gs. Against agile Western fighters like the American F-4 Phantom, this was a crippling flaw. In a turning battle, the Foxbat quickly found itself outmaneuvered, its pilot trapped in a machine designed for climbing and sprinting rather than twisting and dodging. The story became even more troubling at low altitudes. While the MiG-25 had been perfected for thin air at extreme heights, it was cumbersome closer to the ground. The thick atmosphere exposed its weaknesses, with its wings struggling to generate efficient lift and its engines burning through fuel at an alarming rate. At these levels, the fighter could no longer rely on its high-speed edge, leaving it clumsy and vulnerable to opponents built for flexibility across a wider range of conditions. The combat systems of the MiG-25 mirrored the aircraft itself, impressive on paper, yet flawed in real battles. Its radar was one of the largest and most powerful ever fitted to a fighter, capable of detecting targets from astonishing distances. But this strength came with major drawbacks. The radar emitted so much energy that it practically announced the aircraft's presence long before it could engage its prey, robbing it of the element of surprise. Moreover, the early missiles carried by the Foxbat were massive and designed primarily for high-altitude interception. They were deadly against bombers flying high and straight, but far less useful against nimble fighters that darted and weaved. Even so, the Foxbat was not without its strategic value. It terrified adversaries by simply existing. Western intelligence in the 1960s and 1970s often overestimated its capabilities, believing it to be nearly unstoppable. This forced the United States to accelerate the development of fighters like the F-15 Eagle, which eventually surpassed the MiG-25 in maneuverability and versatility. In this sense, the Foxbat shaped the global fighter race, not through direct dominance, but through the fear it inspired. Much of its reputation rested not only on raw speed and altitude, but also on the powerful electronics packed inside. At the heart of this beast was its radar, an instrument that revealed both the brilliance and the brute force approach of Soviet design. At the core of the MiG-25P interceptor was the RP-25 Smerch-A radar, which NATO codenamed Foxfire. This system stood among the most powerful airborne radars of its time. It relied on older but tough vacuum tube electronics, producing such immense energy that it could pierce through enemy bomber jamming attempts. Its detection range against a bomber-sized target reached up to 100 kilometers, making it a formidable piece of equipment in high-altitude combat scenarios. Yet despite its raw power, the Smerch-A carried a fatal weakness. It lacked look-down/shoot-down capability. This meant the radar could not tell the difference between a low-flying aircraft and the clutter of the Earth below. In effect, it became nearly useless when tracking targets at lower altitudes. This limitation proved disastrous, since by the time the MiG-25 was introduced, NATO had already shifted its strategy. Instead of relying on high-altitude bombing runs, Western forces increasingly turned to low-level penetration tactics, deploying both bombers and cruise missiles that could sneak under radar coverage. The Foxbat, built to counter threats of an earlier era, suddenly found itself mismatched against modern methods of attack. When it came to weaponry, the MiG-25 was armed with the massive R-40 missile, which NATO referred to as the AA-6 Acrid. 4 of these heavy weapons were carried under the interceptor's wings, making them the centerpiece of the aircraft's arsenal. Much like the aircraft itself, these missiles were tailored for the high-altitude interception role rather than flexible dogfighting. The R-40 came in 2 primary variants, the radar-guided R-40R and the heat-seeking R-40T. Each missile was built with a very specific purpose, bringing down large, strategic targets flying at great heights. Their performance reflected this goal, with a range stretching up to 80 kilometers and a massive 100-kilogram warhead. The R-40 was engineered to obliterate heavy bombers in a single strike. Against such non-maneuvering aircraft, it was lethal. However, the limitations appeared once the Foxbat faced more agile opponents. Fighters designed for speed and maneuverability could outmatch the Acrid's bulky design and less responsive guidance system. In close encounters or against nimble aircraft, the missile's effectiveness dropped sharply. The Foxbat was simply never meant to duel modern fighters. Its size, power, and weapons all pointed to a very narrow mission set, destroying bombers before they could reach Soviet skies. The combination of the Smerch-A radar and the R-40 missiles highlighted the strengths and weaknesses of the MiG-25. On one hand, it could deliver an immense destructive force at high altitude, creating a real deterrent for any bomber attempting to breach Soviet defenses. On the other hand, the interceptor's rigid specialization left it exposed to evolving tactics. By the 1970s, Western air forces were fielding planes capable of flying low and fast, exactly where the Foxbat's radar could not function effectively. And yet, numbers and specifications only tell part of the tale. To see the MiG-25 for what it truly was, you have to follow it into battle. Its combat record paints a vivid picture, one of dazzling speed and altitude, but also of the unforgiving limits that no amount of raw power could escape. The combat story of the MiG-25 is as fascinating as the machine itself, a mix of brilliance, fear, and harsh reality. It was a jet that could soar higher and faster than almost anything in the sky, and that alone made it a psychological weapon. But when it faced the test of modern air combat, its strengths and weaknesses became impossible to hide. In the early 1970s, the MiG-25R reconnaissance version first showed its worth in the hot skies of the Middle East. Soviet pilots flying for Egypt took their Foxbats over the Sinai Peninsula, then held by Israel. They blasted through the sky at altitudes no Israeli Phantom could touch, and at speeds that left pursuers helpless. Cameras clicked away as the aircraft roared overhead, gathering priceless intelligence while the defenders below could only look up in frustration. For the Soviets, it was the perfect showcase of the Foxbat's reconnaissance power, fast, untouchable, and unchallenged. Not long after, India also put the MiG-25 to good use. Its MiG-25 RBS routinely crossed into Pakistani skies, photographing military sites deep inside enemy territory. Pakistani defenses had no answer. The flights were so one-sided that the aircraft earned a nickname among Indian pilots, the Pradhan, or Prime Minister, because it could go anywhere it pleased. During the brutal Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s, the Fox-Bat played a more aggressive role. Iraqi pilots flew it not only as an interceptor, but also as a bomber. They claimed kills against Iranian F-4 Phantoms and nimble F-5 fighters, proving that, in the right hands, the aircraft could still be lethal. It was during this war that the Fox-Bat earned a reputation as both a hammer and a scalpel, capable of smashing targets from above or piercing enemy air defenses in daring missions. But the Gulf War of 1991 brought the MiG-25 into direct combat with the most advanced fighters in the world. On the very first night of the war, an Iraqi Fox-Bat scored a shocking victory. A MiG-25 PD launched a missile and destroyed a U.S. Navy F/A-18C Hornet, one of the few air-to-air victories scored by Iraq in the entire conflict. For a brief moment, the old interceptor had reminded the world why it had once been so feared. Later in that same war came the legendary Samura air battle. Two Iraqi Fox-Bats were vectored against two American F/A-15Cs. At beyond visual range, both sides fired missiles in a tense duel that echoed the Cold War nightmares of superpower clashes. When the smoke cleared, neither side had lost an aircraft. It was a tactical draw, but symbolically it was stunning. Even a struggling Air Force could, with the Fox-Bat, challenge America's premier air superiority fighter. Still, the war also showed the aircraft's limits. Several Iraqi MiG-25s were destroyed by American FAR-15s, proving that the Fox-Bat's sheer speed could not always save it in modern combat. And in 1992, history was made when a US F-16 shot down an Iraqi Fox-Bat with the brand new AIM-120 AMRAAM missile. For a long time, Japan has maintained a strictly defensive position in its military owing to its demilitarization by the United States after the Second World War. However, watching the Kremlin and China forcing conquests of militarily vulnerable nations, Tokyo joined forces with the United Kingdom and Italy in founding the Global Combat Air Program toward the creation of next-generation fighter jets. Could Japan be leaning towards a more proactive military approach? How has Russia taken this news? Join us as we discuss how Japan's new fighter jet rattles Russia. Over the years, Japan has maintained peace in its military structures, but it wasn't always so. Before the mid-1940s, they were a part of the massive military force under Emperor Hirohito that worked in tandem with Hitler's Nazi Germany forces and the Italian forces during the Second World War. Their improved technology and daring spirit to go after the United States on their own turf in Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, became a calling card for their military strength. However, following the United States' decision to join the war and the atomic bombs released in parts of Japan, especially Hiroshima and Nagasaki, on August 6 and 9, 1945, the Japanese Empire surrendered their arms. They did not, at the time, have an answer for an atomic bomb. But not only did Japan have to surrender their arms, it also had to surrender some part of their rights as a sovereign state to the United States. Following their tragic loss to the United States during the war in 1945, America occupied Japan for 7 years, enforcing a new constitution, where Article 9 conveniently stops them from owning a military force. While some of the top Japanese lobbyists tried to fight against it, they failed, as the country had already set a precedent of war when they hit Pearl Harbor, and now the United States, which drafted the post-war Constitution, was strong-arming them into total submission and dominance. Having no choice but to sign, Tokyo has always kept its nose clean, avoiding war, and quite reluctantly becoming a home to 14 of the biggest military bases that belong to the United States, including the Yokota Air Base in Tokyo, the headquarters of U.S. Forces Japan, the Kadena Air Base, the Yokosuka Naval Base, the Misawa Air Base, and other strategically located military bases for the sake of protecting Japan should a war ever be on the horizon. Although Tokyo is unable to create its own military, it has been afforded the luxury of having a self-defense corps called the Japanese Self-Defense Forces, or JFDF. While Japan has politically shied away from referring to these self-defense forces as military, they are trained in the same way that a military is trained. Although they are not allowed to wage war on another country, as the United States forces control that part, the JFDF is a highly trained elite force, which is very capable of defending their homeland on their own turf if push ever came to shove. Owing to their demilitarization, Tokyo had refrained from manufacturing offensive weapons or military technologies in order to keep honoring their agreement with the United States. While they continued to uphold that posture, the Indo-Pacific region suddenly developed a reputation for China, which has a plan to dominate Southeast Asia through conquest, taking their lands and occupying the targeted sovereign states with a principal government to whom they report back. A perfect example is China's decision to coerce Taiwan into submission. Beijing has completely ramped up its intensity to take over the South China Sea via maritime dominance. The Taiwanese president, Lai Ching-te, who has leaned more towards the West for assistance, including the United States, angers China with their decision to keep bridging the all-powerful West into Indo-Pacific regions, making conquest harder than it used to be in the past. In a recent speech at the 2025 Shangri-La Dialogue, the United States Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth told the audience that China's attempt to conquer Taiwan by force could be imminent. Although China has made no comment about the situation escalating towards an all-out war, its consistent aggressive movement towards the South China Sea along the Taiwan Strait all points to war. Although Taiwan is not demilitarized like Japan, its army and military might not compare to the huge Chinese military force and their war technology, making any type of war between both countries asymmetrical. Tokyo, which has been watching from the sidelines as militarily vulnerable countries are up for grabs by bigger sovereign states, has kept its cool and continued to honor its agreement with the United States without a fuss. However, their concerns continued to grow in 2014 when the Kremlin annexed Crimea and Ukraine with the aim of taking over the territory and, by extension, all of Ukraine. Little by little, the Japanese government turned up its defense technology, upgrading it to offense. Although there has been no confirmation as to why Tokyo suddenly encouraged a spike in the creation of offensive military weapons, including fighter jets, the consistent threats of being gobbled up by a nation with a stronger military were not an uncommon theme, and they saw it too. Although they had the protection of the United States, other countries under the same type of pressure, particularly Taiwan, also have the protection of the United States, meaning that their military has a divided focus, a gamble that Japan was unwilling to take and would rather find a way to prepare for potential all-out war. By February 24, 2022, Japan's fears were officially confirmed as the world watched Russia take over Ukraine, moving in with military might and watching their fighter jets blow up Ukrainian infrastructure, their economy, and their people, with their biggest blowback being heavy economic sanctions from the United States, who are also trying to negotiate peace with the Kremlin rather than join forces with Ukraine to fight the oppressor. Although it is well documented that the United States has been sending reinforcements to Ukraine, including war funds and military support like the F-16 fighters, the war remains ongoing, and Ukraine seems to be on the losing side despite fighting the war on their own turf. These circumstances were enough to change the posture of the Japanese government towards military improvement. Ergo, in 2023, the Japanese government, supported by the United Kingdom and Italy, came up with the idea of a jointly run operation where they could safely develop a sixth-generation fighter jet that could send a message to other top military nations, including China, the United States, and, more importantly, the Kremlin. The initiative was announced on December 9, 2022, the same year that the Russo-Ukrainian threats of war since 2014 became an all-out war. The initiative creates an avenue for the three countries that are involved to merge their separate sixth-generation projects, which would include the United Kingdom-led BAE Systems Tempest developed with Italy and the Japanese Mitsubishi FX. Although Japan had been technically demilitarized, it kept its defense in check aerially, on the ground, and maritime. Aerially, they created an Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ, a region of airspace in which a country tries to identify, locate, and control aircraft in the interest of national security. It is declared unilaterally and may extend beyond a country's territory to give the country more time to respond to possible hostile forces aggressively without sanctions from any organization. But what makes the Mitsubishi FX, or F3 as it is called unofficially, so special that it is added as a potential study guide for a new next-generation jet? The Mitsubishi FX is a technology developed out of necessity by local Japanese companies, especially since the United States stopped the export of the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor to foreign nations, which included Japan, which did not have the military to defend itself in the first place because it had been demilitarized by the United States. Caught in this dilemma, Tokyo responded by building a domestically developed fighter jet to replace the F-22, which was no longer an option for them. Between 2009 and 2010, Tokyo delved deep into research on the latest fighter jets at the time, but decided against building the exact same things and instead looked to create something about a generation higher. It was no longer just about defense. It was about proving a point to the United States, which had faltered in its promises to help rebuild an aging air fleet that needed to be changed as quickly as possible. Following their research, they came up with the I-3, which translates to Informed, Intelligent, and Instantaneous Fighter Jet. Being Japan's first conceptualized fighter jet of the sixth-generation ilk, it was retrofitted with different functionalities, including advanced radar systems to counter stealth technology of other fighters, receiving targeting information from other platforms like drones, fighters, and airborne early warning and control aircraft. Use of flyby optics reminiscent of the Kawasaki P1 to process information faster, stealth technology, gallium nitride semiconductors to improve radar performance, and a new, more powerful engine that could give it a burst of hypersonic speed, Mach 6 and beyond. While the I-3 could be deemed a successful project, it was not going to be the end-all be-all for Japan. They needed something different, something designed for real air superiority. Enter the FX twin-engine stealth fighter jet. The Japanese Ministry of Defense described it as a technology with sixth-generation abilities. The Japanese Ministry of Defense was very much in a competition with the rest of the world, but mainly the United States, which at the time could boast of one of the biggest fighters in the world, the F-22 Raptor, but it traveled at Mach 2, which is twice the speed of sound. While it could be very much within the scale of the fastest fighters in the world, it was nowhere near the potential of the FX, which was proposed to be 6 times faster than the speed of sound. The FX is said to be bigger than the F-22, which has earned it the nickname Godzilla from Bradley Perrett at Aviation Week. The large size indicates the Japanese Ministry of Defense desires the aircraft to possess a very long range and a large payload capacity, meaning that it can carry much bigger ordnance than the F-22 while traveling at Mach 6 speed, and also be able to hit its target without faltering. It was the game changer. Technologies tested in the X2 technology demonstrator will likely be incorporated into the FX fighter. Defense Minister Taro Kono has stated that the FX will possess strong network capabilities and will carry more missiles than even the crown jewel of the United States' aviation fleet, the F-35 Lightning II. The FX was a statement design that repelled almost everything the Raptor had, ranging from replacing the usage of conventional hydraulic systems with electric actuators. According to Japan's Ministry of Defense's evaluation, the reason for selecting electric actuators over hydraulic systems is because of the complexity of designing the interior of the stealth fighter. However, other than speed, the FX was designed for more. The Japanese Ministry of Defense wanted a jet capable of multiple functions. For some context, there are aircraft that are only capable of hunter missions, meaning that they can only be useful to gather information on the enemy and for surveillance and reconnaissance missions. However, they are also accompanied by a specific aircraft that does the job of aiming and firing at targets, called a killer. Hence, should there ever be a need to scout for problems and take them out immediately when the opportunity arises, the military sends the hunter and killer aircraft, with one primed to take out the target and the other tasked with identifying the target. However, when designing the stealth shape of the FX, the internal weapon bay and intake air ducts must be accounted for. Consequently, problems arise with installing hydraulic system piping due to design considerations such as rigidity and length. Hence, the reason that they adopted electric actuators, as they work with wires instead of pipes, eliminating the constraints once and for all. This results in simplified installation and reduced restrictions, allowing more flexibility in designing the body of the aircraft. But what really makes the FX special is its lightweight. Imagine an aircraft so big it is called Godzilla, weighing just a little more than a Raptor, even though it is considerably bigger. This was exactly what the Japanese aircraft developers were willing to achieve. Ergo, they tweaked the manufacturing design so far from the conventional designs. For some context, regular aircraft are mostly built using fasteners like bolts, screws, and nuts together to put up composite materials during construction. However, the FX designers took care of the extra weight from the fasteners by using adhesive glue to join composite materials together. This method is dubbed the integrated fastenerless structure technology. Although the fastenerless technology took a bit of weight away, the real chunk of weight is taken away by the use of lighter building materials like aluminum alloys and carbon fiber reinforced polymer. But the question is, if an aircraft is going to be flying at an unconventional speed of Mach 6 and above and in full flight, how do the softer materials like the carbon fiber reinforced polymer and aluminum alloys handle the heat that comes from the friction when the aircraft flies at that speed without getting burnt? Owing to the use of materials like carbon fiber reinforced polymer and alloys, the Japanese designers employ a heat shield technology, meaning that they add a component designed to protect an object or a human operator from being burnt or overheated by dissipating, reflecting, or absorbing heat. The Japanese Ministry of Defense's research team believes that the new design methods that help reduce the weight of the aircraft not only shorten the required working man-hours by 66%, but also propose a bit of a solution for the avionics system. The avionics of this aircraft centers around its hunter-killer enablers, ranging from its navigation system to radar systems and sensors. To help the aircraft avoid detection, enabling its hunter version, the engineers equipped it with top-class sensors like an active electronically scanned array, or AESA radar, a passive radio frequency, or RF sensor, and an infrared camera. The active electronically scanned array sensors are a game-changing radar technology that is powerful enough to track even stealthy aircraft without getting caught. Also, the aircraft is fitted with radio frequency, or RF sensors, which activate the aircraft's radio and use it to pick up signals and information without sending out its own signal, making it nigh undetectable to most hunter aircraft. But for an aircraft that flies at Mach 6, how does it sustainably protect its heat signature from hunter aircraft with infrared technology completely capable of reading heat signatures, especially from an air beast that big? The fighter is equipped with cooling systems around the avionics to reduce the heat that comes from the surface, keeping potentially large hotspots cool enough to avoid infrared detection. But it gets even better with the specially coated painting in pitch black that not only blends properly into the night sky, but also absorbs, spreads, and dispels the heat that comes from the friction of the aircraft, speeding at 6 times the speed of sound against the air. While its hunters are perfectly on display, the aircraft is retrofitted with an ASM-3, a supersonic anti-ship missile being developed by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries to replace the ASM-1 and ASM-2 missiles, and also microwave weapons, or direct energy weapons in more popular parlance. Microwave weapons are the next level of fighter jet armament, as they are capable of ranged weapons that damage their targets with highly focused energy without a solid projectile, including lasers, microwaves, particle beams, and even sound beams. While it has not been actively found in use by most top militaries around the world because of its unpredictability, especially when aiming for a smaller and moving target, potential applications of this technology include weapons that target personnel, missiles, vehicles, and optical devices, now in the FX. While the hunter-killer missions are nigh perfectly suited to this aircraft, the Japanese history with war, which includes heavy losses of lives in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, prompted them to find a different solution when this aircraft is in use. Ergo, to reduce losses, they decided on introducing an unmanned combat aerial vehicle that can operate significantly beside the FX. Think of it as a shadow bodyguard that will be called the Combat Support Unmanned Aircraft, which would be responsible for carrying even more sensors and radars, making it easier to spot targets, or more importantly, threats to the pilot's life while he flies the FX. This wingman style is not too dissimilar from the Kratos XQ-58 Valkyrie or Boeing Air Power Teaming System project, where the drone acts as the loyal wingman to the aircraft. While the Wingman drone to finally complement the FX is not touted to be available until the 20s, the FX has definitely started to ruffle feathers in Eastern Europe, particularly Russia. Although the Kremlin remains stuck in a loop of asymmetrical warfare with Ukraine over their decision to join forces with the West and sign up for membership as a part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, the course of the war could suddenly change when Japan completes the FX project. While it is unclear why Japan might be interested in picking a side in the Russo-Ukrainian war, the United States, which has already picked a side, Ukraine's in the war, holds a lot of sway in Japan, a country where they have military bases and where they are owed some respect because of Pearl Harbor in Article 9 of the post-war Constitution. Ergo, it isn't so hard to infer that they might influence Japan into equipping Ukraine with an FX, changing the landscape of the war completely. Whether Japan decides to support Ukraine with its new fighter jet, adding a new complexion to the war, or simply stays away from the Eastern European forces, remains to be seen. On May 8, 2026, the U.S. government released classified UFO files that confirm what researchers have been saying for decades. Not grainy footage, not pilot testimonies that get dismissed at press briefings. Actual program documents from inside the U.S. intelligence apparatus confirming that non-human craft have been recovered. But here's what the headlines are missing. The real story isn't that UFOs are real. It's that the U.S. has had them for decades, handed them to defense contractors, and has been quietly learning how to fly them. The release covers documents spanning multiple agencies, including the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Office of Naval Intelligence, and several programs that had no public name until this month. What makes this different from every prior disclosure is the language. Previous releases talked about unidentified aerial phenomena in careful, detached terms. These documents use phrases like recovered non-human origin craft and material of non-terrestrial manufacture. That's not bureaucratic hedging, that's an admission. The scope of what dropped in May is wide, but it's the gaps that tell the deeper story. Whole sections are redacted. Specific program names appear once and then disappear behind black bars for the next 30 pages. You can see the shape of something much larger being deliberately kept out of frame. Several documents reference programs that connect directly to known black budget operations. The names won't be familiar to most people, but defense researchers have been tracking anomalous budget line items for years. Money that flows into programs with no public description and no congressional oversight record. What the May 8th files do is start filling in what some of that money was actually for. So why release any of this now? The answer is congressional pressure that's been building since 2023, combined with whistleblower protection legislation that made it legally safer for insiders to come forward. The UAP Disclosure Act forced the hand of agencies that would have sat on this indefinitely. Multiple former program officials had already testified under oath to the Senate Armed Services Committee that recovery programs existed. Once that's on the congressional record, full suppression becomes harder to maintain. Then there's AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which was set up in 2022 and spent 2 years publicly stating there was no evidence of recovered craft or reverse engineering programs. The May 8th documents directly contradict that position. Reports from inside AARO's own analysis chain reference material studies and propulsion research that don't match anything in the known aerospace inventory. The office was telling Congress one thing while its own classified reporting said something else entirely. One document that's getting a lot of attention references a program structure described as a tiered controlled access program, meaning it's classified above top secret in a way that legally exempts it from standard congressional oversight. That structure is how you hide something for 50 years without a single budget hearing exposing it. The program isn't in the black budget because it technically doesn't exist inside the normal classification architecture. It exists in a separate layer that most of the government can't even ask about. What's confirmed in the files, taken together, is this. Craft of non-human origin were recovered. Materials from those craft were transferred to contractors for analysis, and at least some of that work involved propulsion systems that don't match any known physics framework. The documents don't explain how far that work progressed, But they confirm it happened, and they confirm it's been happening for a long time. The files confirm recovery. But recovery is only the beginning of this story. What the US did with what it found, who did the work, and what they've actually built from it, that's what the next layer of documents starts to reveal. If you wanted to hide the most advanced aerospace program in human history, Lockheed's Skunk Works facility in Palmdale, California, is exactly where you'd put it. This is the same operation that built the U-2 spy plane in total secrecy during the 1950s, then followed it with the SR-71 Blackbird, which flew so fast and so high that nothing could touch it. Then came the F-117, the world's first operational stealth aircraft, which the Air Force publicly denied existed for years while it was already flying combat missions. Skunk Works doesn't just build classified aircraft, it builds things the rest of the world won't believe are possible until they're already obsolete. The May 8th files reference contractor involvement in material analysis going back decades. Lockheed is named in connection with propulsion research tied to recovered craft, and the language used isn't vague. One document describes a materials transfer to a cleared defense contractor facility for analysis of non-conventional propulsion elements. Skunk Works has the clearance infrastructure, the physical security, and the engineering depth to run exactly that kind of program without a single public trace. Raytheon's role is different, but just as telling. Where Lockheed is about airframes and propulsion, Raytheon specializes in the sensor and weapon systems that would need to interface with whatever gets built. Their classified divisions have been working on directed energy weapons and advanced electromagnetic systems for years, and several of those programs have budget lines that dwarf their known output. If you're reverse engineering a craft that manipulates electromagnetic fields for propulsion, you need Raytheon-level expertise to understand what you're actually measuring. Their involvement points to a program that's moved well past basic materials analysis into something that requires operational hardware. The structure that makes all of this legally possible is called a Controlled Access Program, or CAP. It sits above top secret clearance and operates outside the standard congressional budget review process. A program inside a CAP doesn't appear in defense appropriations hearings. It doesn't get reviewed by the Armed Services Committee. The people running it can legally tell senators it doesn't exist, because inside the classification framework, it technically doesn't. This is how you spend decades and billions of dollars on something with no public record. The money moves through layers of contractor sub-accounting that were specifically designed to be untraceable. Bob Lazar described this exact architecture in 1989. He said he worked at a facility near Area 51 called S4, where 9 recovered craft were stored and studied. He described a propulsion system built around a stable isotope of element 115, which he called moscovium, that generated a gravitational field used for propulsion. At the time, element 115 didn't officially exist on the periodic table. It was synthesized and confirmed in 2003. Lazar's technical descriptions were specific enough and accurate enough on points that couldn't have been guessed, that dismissing him as a fraud requires ignoring a lot of inconvenient detail. The May 8th files don't mention him by name, but the propulsion research they reference lines up with what he described 37 years ago. Where does the money come from? Defense analysts who track black budget allocations have flagged a category of aerospace spending that's grown by roughly 300% since the early 2000s, with no corresponding increase in known program output, no new aircraft, no announced propulsion contracts, no patents filed. That money went somewhere, and based on what the files released describe, the answer is becoming harder to argue with. Start with what Navy pilots actually recorded, because that's where the physics breaks down in a way you can't explain away. The Tic Tac incident from 2004 gave us something rare: military sensor data, trained observers, and a craft that performed maneuvers no known aircraft can execute. Commander David Fravor watched it drop from 80,000 feet to sea level in under a second, stop dead, then accelerate in a completely different direction with no transition, no arc, no deceleration curve. Just an instantaneous change of vector at speeds that would reduce a human pilot to a stain on the seat. The G-force involved in that kind of movement, by any conventional physics calculation, would be somewhere between 400 and 700 Gs. A human body starts losing consciousness around 9 Gs. Whatever was inside that craft, if anything was, it wasn't being subjected to the same forces the airframe was generating. That's the first thing that separates these craft from everything else. They don't appear to be affected by inertia. When your car accelerates, you feel it push you back into the seat because your body has mass and resists the change in motion. These craft move as if that relationship between mass and acceleration has been switched off. The engineering community's best working theory is electromagnetic field manipulation, where the craft generates a localized field that essentially warps the space it's moving through, so the craft and everything inside it moves together without experiencing the directional forces that would normally apply. You're not pushing through space, you're moving the space around you. Then there's the propulsion signature, or more accurately, the complete absence of one. Every aircraft ever built leaves traces. Heat bloom from engines, exhaust gases, a pressure wave that generates a sonic boom above the speed of sound. These craft produce none of that. Radar tracks them at speeds well above Mach 1 with no sonic signature. Infrared sensors find no heat output. There's no jet wash, no plasma trail, nothing that conventional propulsion would leave behind. Whatever is moving them isn't burning anything and isn't pushing against the air. The altitude performance compounds this, from a standing hover at low altitude to above 80,000 feet in a matter of seconds, with no acceleration phase, no engine spool-up, no detectable thrust vector. That's not improved propulsion, that's a different category of physics entirely. Stealth properties add another layer. These craft don't just absorb radar the way an F-22 does with its angled surfaces and radar-absorbing materials. They disappear from multiple sensor types simultaneously. Radar, infrared, optical tracking, all go blank at the same moment. That kind of cross-spectrum disappearance suggests the craft can manipulate its own electromagnetic signature across every detection wavelength at once, not just deflect one type of sensor. Now factor in the TR-3B, a triangular craft reported independently by dozens of witnesses across multiple countries over the past 30 years, always described the same way. Silent, slow-moving at low altitude, capable of accelerating away at speeds that leave no trace on radar. The consistency of those descriptions across unconnected sources is hard to write off. If the reverse engineering programs described in the May 8th files produced a flying prototype, a triangular platform would be a logical airframe choice for a craft using field-based propulsion rather than conventional thrust. Even replicating 20% of what these craft can do would make the result invisible to every air defense system on the planet. No radar lock, no heat-seeking missile track, no intercept solution. If the US has crossed that threshold, the gap between American air power and every other nation isn't measured in generations. It's measured in physics. China's DFZF hypersonic glide vehicle tops out around Mach 10. Russia's Avangard system reaches Mach 27 under ideal conditions. Both represent years of development and genuine engineering achievement. They're also still moving through the atmosphere the same way a rock moves when you throw it, subject to drag, heat, gravity, and tracking solutions that improve every year. Western air defense systems have already started adapting to hypersonic threats. The physics is understood. The countermeasures are being built. A craft that produces no radar return, no heat signature, and no inertial profile isn't a faster version of the same problem. It's a problem that existing defense architecture has no answer for, because every detection and intercept system ever built assumes the target is operating inside Newtonian physics. You can't compute an intercept solution for something that changes direction instantaneously. You can't guide a missile to a heat source that doesn't exist. You can't jam a craft that's already invisible to every wavelength you're transmitting. That's what makes the strategic gap here different from any prior technology advantage. When the US fielded the F-117, it took years before adversaries developed radar systems capable of tracking low observable aircraft. Eventually they did. The physics was still the same, just harder to work with. What the May 8th files point toward is a capability that doesn't give adversaries a longer timeline to adapt. It gives them no pathway at all, because the underlying physics isn't an evolution of what they already understand. The surveillance applications alone would reshape geopolitics entirely. A platform that can reach any point on Earth undetected, loiter without any thermal or electromagnetic trace, and exit before any response is mounted gives the U.S. an intelligence collection capability with no precedent. Every facility, every command structure, every weapons program a foreign government believes is hidden becomes visible, and they'd never know it happened. That's why this stayed buried for so long. Releasing it doesn't just trigger an arms race. It collapses the entire framework of mutual deterrence that international security has been built on since the 1950s. Every treaty negotiated under the assumption that both sides had roughly comparable detection and strike capabilities becomes meaningless. Every military alliance recalculates its value. The geopolitical order restructures overnight and not in ways anyone can fully predict. Lockheed and Raytheon aren't going to confirm any of this. The program managers who ran these operations signed agreements that don't expire and carry criminal consequences. But the May 8th documents are doing something those individuals can't stop. They're assembling the outline of a program that was never supposed to have an outline. Each redacted page still shows you where the edges are. And the edges are a lot larger than anyone outside this program was supposed to know. The U.S. didn't just recover something. It spent decades turning that recovery into operational hardware. And the rest of the world is only now finding out that race was run without them. What dropped isn't the end of the story. It's the first time the story got official edges. The U.S. has been flying ahead of the known world for decades, and the files are finally saying what the contractors never will. When the Anka-3 emerged from its hangar in November 2023, defense analysts around the world had to do a double take. This was not supposed to happen. A country that had been locked out of the F-35 program just a few years earlier had somehow built a flying wing stealth combat drone that looked like it belonged in a superpower's arsenal. How did Turkey pull this off? And what does their sudden emergence as a stealth aircraft manufacturer mean for an already tense global defense landscape? Join us as we explore the 10 most shocking aspects of Turkey's Anka-3 program. The event took place at the Turkish aerospace industry site close to Ankara during what was meant to be a normal display of Turkey's increasing defense abilities. Journalists were invited, along with military leaders and some foreign guests. No one anticipated what would happen next. When the hangar doors opened and the Anka-3 appeared, everyone fell silent. People were amazed not only because Turkey created a stealth drone, but also because of the specific type of stealth drone they built. The design, shaped like a flying wing with no vertical fins and smooth surfaces, showed some of the best aerospace engineering globally. Other countries with much more experience and money had a hard time getting this design right. Yet Turkey presented something that seemed to fit in the same category as the American B-21 Raider or the Chinese GJ-11. Defense journalists and military attachés started taking photos immediately. Some were impressed, calling it a genuine breakthrough that nobody saw coming. Others were skeptical, questioning whether the aircraft was actually functional or just a full-scale mock-up designed to generate headlines. A few Western analysts seemed almost offended, as if Turkey had broken some unspoken rule about who gets to build fifth-generation stealth aircraft. Regardless of their reactions, everyone understood they were witnessing something significant. The aircraft itself looked menacing in person. Painted in a dark gray scheme with sharp angular edges blending into smooth curves, it had that distinctive tailless flying wing profile that signals stealth to anyone who knows aircraft design. No tail fins jutting up to catch radar. No obvious engine intakes creating radar hotspots. Just clean, continuous surfaces designed to scatter electromagnetic waves in every direction except back toward the source. Turkish officials spoke briefly at the presentation. They said the aircraft is called the Anka and that it is made for high altitude, long missions, and will eventually carry smart bombs. After that, they stopped talking. There were no details about its specifications, performance, or when it would be ready for use. The message was clear. Turkey had built something impressive, and the world could figure out the details on its own time. What made the whole thing more shocking was the timeline. Just 4 years earlier, in 2019, the United States had kicked Turkey out of the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter program. The reason? Turkey had bought Russian S-400 air defense systems, and Washington considered that an unacceptable security risk. Losing access to the F-35 was supposed to be devastating for Turkey's Air Force modernization plans. American officials assumed it would force Ankara to come back to the table on American terms. Turkey's aerospace industry did not appear overnight. The country had been building toward this moment for decades, slowly developing the technical expertise and industrial base necessary to design and manufacture advanced aircraft. Turkish Aerospace Industries, the state-owned company behind Anka 3, traces its roots back to the 1970s. Back then, they were assembling American and European aircraft under license, learning the fundamentals of aviation manufacturing one rivet at a time. The real turning point came in the 2000s when Turkey committed to developing indigenous defense capabilities. Tired of depending on foreign suppliers who could cut them off at any moment for political reasons, Ankara started pouring money into domestic research and development. The initial projects were modest, upgrading existing aircraft, developing subsystems, and building unmanned aerial vehicles for reconnaissance missions. Each success built confidence and capability. The original Anka program, which began in the early 2000s, focused on creating a medium-altitude, long-endurance surveillance drone. It was not particularly sophisticated by global standards, but it worked, and more importantly, it was entirely Turkish. Engineers learned how to design airframes, integrate avionics, develop flight control systems, and manage complex aerospace projects from start to finish. Those skills became the foundation for everything that followed. By the time Turkey started working on Anka 3, they had accumulated nearly 2 decades of hands-on experience in unmanned aircraft development. They had also established partnerships with foreign companies willing to share technology, acquired advanced manufacturing equipment, and trained a generation of aerospace engineers who understood both the theory and practice of building military aircraft. The knowledge gap between Turkey and the traditional aerospace powers had been narrowing for years. Anka 3 was the moment that gap closed enough to matter. What separates Anka 3 from earlier Turkish aircraft is not just its stealth characteristics, but also its operational concept. This was designed from the start as a combat platform, not a surveillance asset that might eventually carry weapons. The flying wing configuration maximizes internal weapons bay capacity while maintaining a low radar cross-section. That means Anka 3 can carry precision-guided bombs and air-to-ground missiles hidden inside its fuselage, launching them without compromising its stealth profile. The aircraft reportedly has a wingspan of around 15 meters and an operational ceiling exceeding 40,000 feet. Those numbers put it in the same category as other high-altitude stealth drones, capable of loitering over target areas for extended periods while remaining difficult to detect. The jet engine, which appears to be mounted internally with carefully designed intakes and exhausts, provides the thrust needed for long-range missions and high-speed attacks. Stealth technology requires obsessive attention to detail. Every surface, every seam, every panel has to be precisely engineered to minimize radar reflection. Turkey apparently succeeded in mastering the complex materials, science, computational modeling, and manufacturing precision required to make this work. That alone represents a massive technological achievement, one that places Turkey in an extremely exclusive club of nations capable of producing operational stealth aircraft. The flight control system deserves special attention. Flying wing designs are inherently unstable. Without a traditional tail providing natural stability, the aircraft relies entirely on computer-controlled surfaces and thrust vectoring to stay in the air. The software managing these systems has to make thousands of tiny adjustments per second, correcting for wind, turbulence, and pilot inputs faster than any human could react. Getting that software right requires years of testing and refinement. Turkey apparently got it right. The avionics system is another big success. Modern stealth planes need advanced technology to combine information from radar, infrared cameras, electronic warfare systems, and other sources into one clear view. Anka 3 is said to have a special radar that can track several targets at the same time while staying hard to detect. This type of radar needs advanced technology and processing methods that Turkey likely created or obtained despite restrictions on exports. The weapons integration system also shows considerable sophistication. Internal weapons bays must open, release munitions, and close again in a matter of seconds without compromising stealth. That requires precise mechanical systems, careful aerodynamic design, and software that coordinates everything perfectly. Turkish engineers apparently solved these problems, though exactly how they managed it remains unclear. The aircraft can reportedly carry a mix of guided bombs and cruise missiles, giving it genuine strike capability against both fixed and mobile targets. Building Anka-3 was not just a technical challenge, it was a logistical and industrial one. Creating an aircraft this sophisticated requires hundreds of specialized suppliers providing everything from advanced composites to precision machine components. Turkey had to either develop these capabilities domestically or find foreign partners willing to provide them, despite potential political pressure from the United States and other Western nations. Reports suggest Turkish engineers faced significant obstacles obtaining certain critical technologies, particularly advanced jet engines and some electronic warfare systems. International arms embargoes and technology transfer restrictions meant they could not simply buy what they needed from established suppliers. Instead, they had to improvise, reverse engineer, and develop indigenous alternatives. The fact that Anka-3 exists at all suggests they succeeded in overcoming most of these obstacles. The engine situation was difficult. High-performance jet engines require exotic materials, precision manufacturing, and decades of accumulated engineering knowledge. Turkey initially tried to develop its own turbofan engine, but apparently encountered difficulties meeting performance requirements. Industry sources suggest they eventually secured engines through partnerships with Ukrainian manufacturers, who faced fewer restrictions on sales to Turkey. Whether those engines meet all of Anka's requirements or represent a temporary solution until domestic alternatives are ready remains unclear. Composite materials were another major hurdle. Stealth aircraft use specialized radar-absorbent materials that are difficult to manufacture and highly classified. Turkey had to either develop these materials from scratch or find suppliers willing to sell them despite potential diplomatic complications. Engineers reportedly spent years experimenting with different chemical formulations and manufacturing processes before achieving materials that met their requirements. Some of those materials may still fall short of what American or Chinese stealth aircraft use, but they apparently work well enough to make Anka genuinely difficult to detect. Testing had its own challenges. Stealth aircraft need specialized facilities to measure their radar cross-sections accurately. They need secure testing ranges where foreign intelligence services cannot easily observe their performance. Turkey reportedly built new testing infrastructure specifically for Anka-3, including radar measurement facilities and expanded flight test ranges. That infrastructure investment will pay dividends for future programs. The reactions from Turkey's NATO allies range from uncomfortable to outright hostile. American defense officials publicly downplayed Anka-3's significance, suggesting it was less capable than Turkish officials claimed. Privately, the response was more concerned. Turkey developing advanced stealth capabilities independently meant they were less dependent on American military technology and therefore harder to influence through traditional diplomatic channels. Greece, Turkey's historic rival and fellow NATO member, watched the unveiling with alarm. The two countries have unresolved territorial disputes in the Aegean Sea and tensions over Cyprus that occasionally flare into military confrontations. The Anka-3 gives Turkey a significant new capability in any potential conflict, one that Greece currently has no equivalent for. Greek defense officials immediately began discussions about acquiring their own advanced drones or developing countermeasures. European countries reacted in different ways. Some, especially those with defense companies that could work with Turkey, saw a chance for cooperation. Others were concerned about stability in the Eastern Mediterranean and whether Turkey's increasing military strength would make it more difficult to control within NATO. Additionally, Turkey's ability to do this while still having ties with Russia raised more worries among Europeans. Russia reacted calmly. Moscow has its own advanced military aircraft programs and probably saw Anka-3 as proof that selling air defense systems to Turkey was a good choice, rather than seeing it as a direct threat. In fact, Turkey's ability to develop its own technology likely made it a more appealing partner for Russia, showing that Turkey has strong technical skills and is willing to resist pressure from the West. Saudi Arabia is interested in Turkish defense products and has already bought earlier versions of the Anka drones for spying missions. The new Anka 3 is a big improvement that might attract the Saudis, especially because they are involved in military actions in Yemen and have issues with Iran. The main concern is whether Turkey would hurt its relationships with Western allies by selling stealth combat drones to controversial customers in the Middle East. The United Arab Emirates faces similar considerations. Abu Dhabi has been working to reduce its dependence on American military technology after Washington blocked certain weapon sales over human rights concerns. Turkish stealth drones offer an attractive alternative, though political complications around the Abraham Accords and Turkish-Israeli tensions could complicate any potential deals. Qatar, which is Turkey's main ally in the Gulf, likely has access to the Anka if they choose to. The two countries work closely together in military matters, including having a Turkish military base in Qatar. If Qatar buys Turkish stealth drones, it could change the power balance in the region, especially with the current tensions with Saudi Arabia and the UAE. This possibility probably worries other Gulf countries a lot. Pakistan is another potential customer with strategic implications. The country maintains close military ties with Turkey and desperately needs to modernize its air capabilities to counter India's growing military strength. Turkish stealth drones could provide Pakistan with asymmetric capabilities against a much larger adversary, though the technology transfer and cost considerations would require careful negotiation. Israel, which maintains a complex relationship with Turkey involving both cooperation and competition, viewed Anka 3 through the lens of regional power dynamics. Israeli defense officials recognized that Turkey was positioning itself as a major military power in the Eastern Mediterranean and Middle East. That could complicate Israeli military planning, particularly regarding freedom of action in Syrian airspace. When compared to other stealth combat drones, Anka 3 sits in interesting territory. It is more ambitious than most existing platforms, but less proven than systems from the United States or China. The American MQ-25 Stingray, for example, represents the current state-of-the-art in carrier-based stealth drones, but that program has taken nearly a decade and cost billions of dollars. China's GJ-11 Sharp Sword drone demonstrated flying-wing stealth capabilities years before Anka 3, but details about its operational status remain classified. What makes the Anka 3 particularly significant is not necessarily its absolute capabilities, but what it represents for Turkey's defense industry. This aircraft demonstrates that a nation outside the traditional aerospace superpowers can develop genuinely advanced military aviation technology if they commit sufficient resources and expertise. That changes the calculus for countries considering their own indigenous aircraft programs. The true combat ability of the aircraft is still not tested. Stealth technology is most effective when it works with advanced electronic warfare tools, better sensors, and connections to larger military systems. Creating the aircraft is one task. Creating the whole system that makes it work well in battle is another. Turkey will need many years of testing and improvements before Anka 3 can perform at its best. Turkey having stealth combat drones is important for more than just its military strength. For many years, powerful countries have used advanced military technology to control smaller nations. If you want advanced fighter jets, you need to maintain good relations with the US or Russia. If you need modern air defense systems, you should hope that China or European group agrees with your political stance. Turkey's success with Anka 3 weakens that dynamic. If Ankara can build its own stealth aircraft, other nations might conclude they can too. That could accelerate the proliferation of advanced military technology to countries that previously had no realistic path to acquiring it. The exclusive club of nations capable of producing cutting-edge military aircraft is expanding, and that has profound implications for global security. Regional power balances will change. In the Eastern Mediterranean, Turkey now possesses capabilities that give it significant military advantages over neighbors. In the Middle East, Turkey becomes a more credible military power broker, able to offer sophisticated weapon systems to allies while demonstrating its own technological prowess. That enhanced status could translate into greater diplomatic influence. The relationship between Turkey and NATO faces new complications. Alliance cohesion depends partly on interoperability and shared systems. Turkey increasingly operates military equipment that does not integrate with NATO standard systems, creating potential coordination problems in any joint operations. At the same time, Turkey's enhanced capabilities make it a more valuable ally in scenarios where NATO needs regional military power projection. Arms export markets will also shift. Turkey has been aggressively marketing its defense products internationally, and Anka 3 gives Turkish defense companies a prestigious flagship product to showcase. Countries that feel uncomfortable with the political conditions attached to American or European weapons might view Turkey as an attractive alternative supplier. That could generate significant revenue while expanding Turkey's geopolitical influence. The question now is what comes next. Will Turkey stop with Anka 3, content to have proven its capabilities, or is this just the beginning of a broader push into advanced military aviation? Rumors already circulate about potential manned stealth fighter programs and more ambitious drone designs. Turkish aerospace engineers who cut their teeth on Anka 3 now have the expertise to tackle even more complex projects. International partnerships could accelerate Turkish progress. Several nations have expressed interest in collaborating on future Turkish aircraft programs, potentially providing access to technologies and expertise that would take years to develop independently. Those partnerships could help Turkey leapfrog certain developmental stages while generating revenue and diplomatic benefits. Other nations are watching and learning. If Turkey can develop stealth aircraft despite limited resources and international restrictions, what might larger or wealthier countries achieve with similar determination? The proliferation of advanced military technology seems likely to accelerate, driven partly by Turkey's example. The exclusive club of nations capable of producing cutting-edge weapons continues to expand. The world may never look at Turkey's defense industry the same way again. What was once dismissed as a regional player capable of producing decent but unexceptional military equipment has demonstrated the ability to compete with aerospace superpowers. Anka 3 forced a reassessment of Turkish technological capabilities and ambitions. Whether that aircraft ever fires a shot in combat almost doesn't matter. Its existence has already changed calculations in capitals around the world. The question is no longer whether Turkey can build advanced military aircraft. The question is what they will build next. America's secret ghost jet may soon appear on the USS Gerald Ford, shocking Pentagon officials and rivals. This tailless, triangle-shaped fighter boasts smart skin sensors, laser weapons, and hypersonic speeds of over 6,000 miles per hour. It can even command a swarm of robotic wingmen. Earlier stealth jets seem obsolete in comparison. Has the US Navy just rewritten the rules of aerial warfare? And how will China and Russia react to this invisible predator of the skies? Join us as we unveil the 7th generation fighter jet before it makes it on the United States aircraft carrier. The sky above the USS Gerald Ford lit up with a bright blue flash as something incredible took place. After nearly a century of struggle, the United States Navy had finally solved one of its biggest challenges. Carrier-based jets could now match or even surpass land-based fighters. For years, aircraft carriers had a major disadvantage. Their jets had to be smaller, lighter, and carry less fuel compared to those launching from land. As countries like China and Russia built powerful land-based fighters and long-range missiles, many experts doubted whether carriers could hold their ground in modern warfare. That changed with the Navy's next-generation air dominance fighter. Unlike the older FA-18 Super Hornets, this new jet brought futuristic technology that had once seemed impossible. It wasn't just a single aircraft, it was the leader of a small team. Each NGAD fighter was paired with autonomous drones, commonly called collaborative combat aircraft. These drones carried extra weapons, sensors, and fuel, following the lead fighter's commands while also making quick decisions on their own. A single pilot could now manage what used to take several people. The USS Gerald Ford's firepower grew even stronger with the addition of the Helios laser weapon system. This powerful 150-kilowatt laser could track and destroy incoming missiles and enemy drones almost instantly. Unlike traditional missiles that could run out, the laser remained operational as long as the ship had power. Most people had no idea how fast this technology was advancing. When an Air Force official revealed in 2020 that a test version of the NGAD fighter had already flown, defense experts were caught off guard. The Navy had been quietly working on this breakthrough for more than 7 years, replacing outdated systems from the 1990s with cutting-edge technology designed for the future. The USS Gerald Ford was designed with cutting-edge advancements in mind. As the Navy's most sophisticated aircraft carrier, it featured electromagnetic catapults that propelled aircraft more swiftly and effectively than traditional steam-powered systems. Its nuclear reactors generated the vast energy required for the Helios laser. The NGAD fighter also looked completely different from older jets. It had no vertical tail fins and featured a sleek triangular design, allowing it to fly in ways that would have made traditional aircraft lose control. Advanced computer systems made thousands of tiny adjustments every second to keep it steady and maneuverable. In training exercises, the results spoke for themselves. Against experienced pilots flying F-35s, the NGAD fighter and its robotic wingmen won nearly every simulated battle. The difference was overwhelming. For countries that had spent billions developing anti-ship missiles to keep United States carriers at a distance, this presented a serious problem. With these new jets, carriers could now operate much closer to enemy territory without fear. For the first time since World War II, carrier-based jets weren't just keeping up with land-based fighters, they were better. This wasn't just an upgrade. As the sun set behind the carrier, the new fighter launched into the night, its silhouette blending into the sky. The aircraft represented a development in naval warfare. What happens when these advanced fighters go beyond the clouds and into the vast darkness of space? Could the next generation of American warplanes be used as spacecraft? Engineers across America are already working on technologies beyond those used on the USS Gerald Ford. While naval aviation advances, the next leap is happening in secret labs. The goal isn't just faster planes, it's aircraft that can move between air and space. These next-generation hypersonic fighters could transform aerial combat. Traveling above Mach 5, more than 6,000 kilometers per hour, they could cross continents in minutes. A fighter this fast could fly from New York to Los Angeles in under 30 minutes, making it nearly impossible to track, let alone stop. Building such an aircraft comes with massive challenges. At extreme speeds, air friction generates heat strong enough to melt standard materials. To solve this, the Air Force and NASA are developing heat-resistant composites that can withstand over 2,000 degrees Celsius without breaking apart. Propulsion is another hurdle. Regular jet engines can't function well at extreme speeds or in the thin upper atmosphere. That's where scramjets come in. Unlike traditional engines, scramjets have no moving parts. They use the aircraft's speed to compress incoming air, generating thrust. Since 2018, the Air Force's Mayhem project has been testing scramjet prototypes, gradually improving their performance. Unlike earlier fighter jets, these advanced aircraft wouldn't just fly high, they could briefly leave Earth's atmosphere. By reaching altitudes above 100 kilometers, they could enter a suborbital path, skipping across the upper atmosphere like a stone across water. This would allow them to strike targets with almost no warning, conduct surveillance from altitudes beyond the reach of anti-aircraft weapons, and even deploy small satellites to restore communications in combat zones. The United States military has been quietly funding this research for years. DARPA has been working on airspace transition vehicles since 2020, focusing on designs that can move between the atmosphere and space without rockets or launch pads. But breaking into space creates new risks. Outside Earth's atmosphere, cosmic radiation can damage electronics and pose health risks to pilots. Engineers are developing shielding and radiation-resistant computer systems to keep these aircraft safe. Fuel is another challenge. Traditional jets can refuel mid-air, but space-capable aircraft need an energy source powerful enough to push them beyond most of Earth's gravity and still bring them back safely. Advanced hydrogen propulsion is one possible solution, providing high energy output with only water as a byproduct. The race to develop this technology is already underway. China is rapidly increasing its hypersonic research budget, while Russia's PAKDP program is working on similar aircraft. Any country that masters space-capable fighters will gain a major military advantage. This also raises legal questions. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty bans nuclear weapons in space, but doesn't address conventional weapons or temporary military operations beyond Earth's atmosphere. This loophole has sparked new debates at the United Nations about the future of space warfare. Even the best pilots would need entirely new training for these aircraft. At hypersonic speeds, decisions must be made in milliseconds, too fast for human reaction times. AI assistants and augmented reality systems would have to predict and respond to problems before they happen. The Air Force is already preparing for this future. Specialized bases are being upgraded to support these hybrid airspace vehicles, with reinforced hangars, advanced cooling systems, and specialized fuel storage facilities built to handle the extreme demands of hypersonic flight. While sixth-generation fighters represent the future of modern warfare, these seventh-generation space fighters are something entirely different. The line between science fiction and military reality is disappearing fast. What once seemed impossible is now just a matter of time. As these jets push the limits of technology, the big question is, who or what will be in the pilot's seat? Behind closed doors in high-tech labs across America, engineers have been building the brains of future warplanes long before a single piece of metal is cut. Before these next-generation fighters take shape, their artificial intelligence is already training in virtual battles against the world's best pilots. AI is no longer just a co-pilot, it is being designed to take over entirely. What began as basic autopilot and warning systems soon expanded to flight guidance and real-time threat analysis. Now, cutting-edge AI can autonomously execute complex combat missions, making split-second decisions faster than any human pilot. A breakthrough came with the Pentagon's Project Maven. Launched in 2017, it began by teaching AI to recognize objects in drone footage. Over time, the system evolved to track multiple moving targets, even through clouds, smoke, and electronic interference. The next generation of warplanes will look unlike anything seen before. There will be no cockpits or instrument panels, just advanced processors, cooling systems, and AI-powered decision-making packed inside a sleek, high-speed airframe. These aircraft will be more like flying supercomputers than traditional jets, controlling weapons, sensors, and engines with machine intelligence. The way these planes are built is also changing. In factories across Nevada and California, massive 3D metal printers are already shaping experimental aircraft parts. These machines create complex designs layer by layer, using titanium and carbon fiber, making structures that were previously impossible with older manufacturing methods. This advancement accelerates production at an unprecedented rate. In the past, developing and testing a new design could take several years, involving extensive prototyping, manual adjustments, and countless trial and error phases. Now, with advanced automation and AI-driven simulations, the entire process can be streamlined, reducing development time to just weeks. Engineers can rapidly iterate designs, test performance in virtual environments, and refine prototypes with real-time data, allowing for faster innovation and deployment. Engineers feed designs into simulations where AI runs countless virtual test flights, refining the aircraft before a real one is built. Only the best designs move forward, ensuring each new fighter is an improvement over the last. Military planners see an opportunity in this rapid development cycle. Instead of producing hundreds of identical jets that risk becoming outdated, they can create smaller batches that evolve over time. Each generation learns from the last, making the fleet smarter and more adaptable. Another breakthrough is the concept of smart skin. Instead of mounting separate radar and sensors, the entire surface of these aircraft will be covered in tiny sensors, turning the whole plane into a flying surveillance system. Traditional jets have blind spots, these will have none, detecting threats from all directions and instantly sharing that data with other AI-powered aircraft. This real-time connection gives AI-controlled jets a major edge. Multiple fighters can operate as a single intelligent unit, responding to threats as a team. Smaller, unmanned drone fighters, built at a fraction of the cost, can fly alongside, carrying extra weapons, scouting ahead, or even sacrificing themselves to protect the primary aircraft. But with AI-driven warfare, ethical concerns grow. Military rules state that a human must have meaningful control over combat decisions. Yet at hypersonic speeds, human reaction time simply cannot match AI decision-making measured in microseconds. The Navy has formed an advisory board to address these concerns, ensuring AI follows rules of engagement and minimizes unnecessary harm. However, programming a machine to understand restraint and proportionality remains an unsolved challenge. Technical hurdles also remain. AI-driven aircraft require immense computing power, generating extreme heat. Scientists are exploring quantum computing and advanced cooling systems to keep these machines running efficiently. And while AI has mastered strategy games like chess, aerial combat is far more unpredictable. Training AI pilots in massive simulation environments is key to sharpening their combat skills. The combination of rapid manufacturing and AI autonomy is reshaping aerial warfare. The nation that perfects this technology first will gain an overwhelming advantage, one where warplanes don't just fly, but learn, adapt, and improve with every mission. Even the most advanced fighter jet loses its edge if the enemy spots it from miles away. But what if these new warplanes could completely disappear even from human sight? The most surprising thing about the next generation of fighter jets isn't what they have, it's what they don't. The familiar vertical tails that have defined military aircraft for over a century are gone. Sharp edges and visible engine intakes are missing too. Instead, these jets have a smooth, flowing shape that looks strange to experienced pilots. With soft edges and no clear front or back from certain angles, the design defies traditional aerodynamics and stability rules. It resembles a flying triangle more than a conventional aircraft. This groundbreaking transformation is the result of decades of advancements in stealth technology. The first-generation stealth aircraft, such as the F-117 Nighthawk, relied on angular surfaces to scatter radar signals. The B-2 Spirit bomber improved upon this by incorporating smooth curved contours to further reduce detectability. Today, the most advanced designs push the boundaries even further, striving for near total invisibility to enemy radar systems. Older planes needed vertical tails for stability, but those tails made them easy radar targets. Engineers replaced them with an advanced flow control system originally tested on the B-2. Instead of stabilizers, hundreds of tiny air jets adjust the aircraft's balance in real time. A computer makes constant corrections, ensuring smooth flight without traditional control surfaces. The aircraft's skin also enhances stealth. Radar-absorbing materials are built directly into the structure, making them more durable than older coatings that wore off. Some sections even contain carbon nanotube layers that absorb radar signals and release the energy as harmless heat. Heat detection is another challenge. Fighter jet engines produce extreme heat, making them easy targets for infrared sensors. New designs cool the exhaust before it leaves the aircraft, then spread the remaining heat over a wider area, reducing their infrared signature. This makes it harder for heat-seeking missiles to lock on. Beyond stealth, these jets are built for adaptability. Older fighters were rigidly designed, meaning upgrading one system often required redesigning the entire aircraft. The new generation features modular components, allowing engineers to swap out weapons, sensors, and avionics quickly without major overhauls. This approach cuts costs and extends the aircraft's lifespan. Instead of waiting years for a completely new model, militaries can upgrade existing jets in weeks. Experts estimate this could reduce costs by 30 to 40% compared to today's most advanced fighters. For radar operators, detecting these aircraft is becoming nearly impossible. Older stealth jets had radar signatures the size of a small bird. Today's fighters appear smaller than a marble. The goal is to become virtually invisible to radar altogether. Even spotting these jets with the naked eye is difficult. Adaptive camouflage panels on their surface can change color to blend with the sky or terrain below. While not true invisibility, this makes them extremely hard to track visually, especially from a distance. Every aspect of these jets is built for real-world combat. Critical areas are reinforced to withstand damage, maintenance access points are easier to reach, and vital systems have built-in backups. These improvements come directly from lessons learned in modern warfare. Stealth technology has always been a cat-and-mouse game. As enemy sensors evolve, stealth aircraft must adapt. With flexible designs and cutting-edge technology, these new jets are built to stay ahead, ensuring dominance in future battles. As America leads in stealth tech, others race to catch up. How did a marketing move spark a trillion-dollar power struggle? The idea of fighter jet generations didn't start with military strategists or aviation pioneers. It was a marketing move by Lockheed Martin. In the early 2000s, The company needed a way to make its new F-35 fighter stand out. The solution they came up with was to call it fifth generation, making everything else seem outdated. The term caught on. Soon, military officials, journalists, and analysts worldwide adopted the classification. Older jets were retroactively sorted into generations. The Korean War-era F-86 Sabre became first generation. The Vietnam-era F-4 Phantom was third generation, and Europe's Eurofighter Typhoon landed in the fourth generation category. What began as a sales tactic reshaped global defense strategy. Countries now felt pressured to keep up. When China unveiled its J-20 in 2011, state media repeatedly emphasized one point. It was China's first fifth-generation fighter. The message was clear. China had joined an exclusive club previously limited to the United States and Russia. India accelerated its fifth-generation program. Japan prioritized acquiring such capabilities. South Korea launched an ambitious effort to build its own next-generation fighter instead of buying from abroad. This marketing-driven shift overlooked an important fact. Before generational labels took hold, countries evaluated fighters by their capabilities, not arbitrary classifications. The French Rafale and Swedish Gripen featured advanced technologies that rivaled early fifth-generation jets. Yet they were dismissed as merely 4.5 generation. The United States officially moved towards sixth-generation fighters in 2014 with DARPA's Air Dominance Initiative, securing nearly $1 billion in early funding. By 2020, the Air Force confirmed that a demonstrator had already flown successfully, pushing rivals to accelerate their programs. China responded by reorganizing its aerospace sector, pouring funds into AI and advanced materials research. Satellite images soon revealed remote test sites where experimental aircraft could fly unobserved. Despite economic struggles, Russia pressed forward with its PAKDP program to replace the aging MiG-31. Officials highlighted its planned ability to operate at extreme altitudes, an apparent counter to United States' interest in space-capable fighters. European nations, unable to match these investments alone, formed cooperative ventures. The UK-led Tempest project partnered with Italy and Sweden, while France, Germany, and Spain joined forces on the Future Combat Air System. Both programs aim to maintain European defense independence rather than rely on American jets. Historically, new fighter generations emerge every 10 to 15 years. Now, the leap from fifth to sixth generation may take 25 to 30 years due to rising costs and complexity. Seventh-generation concepts might not enter service until the 2070s, marking the longest development cycle in fighter history. Meanwhile, the B-52 bomber offers a different approach. First deployed in 1955, it has been continuously upgraded and could serve for a century, proving that evolution sometimes beats revolution. Lockheed Martin, which started this generational race, continues teasing the future. At its Skunk Works' 80th anniversary, a mystery aircraft appeared alongside historic designs like the U-2 and SR-71, potentially America's next fighter. With future programs expected to cost hundreds of billions, international collaboration is now essential. What began as a marketing ploy has reshaped global military aviation, making generational labels a defining factor in national security and defense spending. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.